Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Highly Unsolicited Book Reviews for the Uninvested Spouse. My name is Jess.
My name is Mark.
And today we are going to be talking about a very popular series by Rebecca Yarros.
Yes, today we're going to be talking about Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. These are books 1 and 2 in the Empyrean trilogy.
No, I think it's going to be 5 books.
A pentology. Book 3. Sorry, if I'm coming off a little bit soft today, it's I have some kind of sore throat thing or something, but it's all good.
He's got a man cold and he's acting like a real big baby about it.
Yep, I'm a big baby. I'm not allowed to get sick. I'm only allowed to be strong.
No, you're allowed to,
No,
but
I have I woke up this morning. I didn't sleep great last night. I woke up this morning with this stupid sore throat and it hasn't gotten any better, but it's really not that bad. It's just I've been being a big baby today.
Mm-hmm.
I like being a big baby. It's nice every once in a while to just be like, I'm sick.
Yeah. Alrighty. Fourth Wing.
Yes, Fourth Wing. So
you actually read book 1, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I have read Fourth Wing. Good book, I will admit. I'm not one that usually reads like recent fantasy-ish books. I haven't really been reading a lot in a while, but when you read it and you highly recommended it, so
yeah, I liked how fast-paced it was. Like, I felt like if any book was going to get you to read a book, like, if there was going to be a series that would get you to read with, how busy you've been to keep you interested, it had to be something fast-paced, and this was.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need a book to be fast-paced, but I actually felt a little bit that the Fourth Wing kind of jumped a little bit. Like, it kind of felt like it was like, this happened and this happened and this happened and everything made sense, but I honestly appreciate books that are willing to tell a story where it's like, yeah, we're gonna have like a whole chapter dedicated to people doing kind of innocuous stuff, but it kind of builds their characters a little more. So this one was even though it wasn't exactly what I would wasn't exactly to my taste, I really enjoyed it.
So do you want to read the summary for us for Fourth Wing?
Sure.
Before we get into the review?
Yeah, so this is a book we mentioned by Rebecca Yarros. It is a romantic fantasy adventure. It tells the story of a brutal world where there's like these elite dragon riders that are training in a war college. It's a world at war, and they're in kind of this, you can think of it kind of like a North Korea enclosed country where information is being closely controlled by the higher ups. So the people who are, starting and the young people in the country don't really know exactly, they don't have the full truth of what's going on in the greater world beyond, but they're being trained to be soldiers. The main character, Violet, is 20 years old. Her mom is like a general, but she's like super... So like her mom's a general. Her dad was like this super good scribe. He was a scholar.
Scribe. Yeah, you're right. He was a scribe.
And then she has like a couple like siblings, and all of her siblings were very accomplished. And like basically, if anyone can bond with a dragon, then they get magic powers, and the more powerful your magic powers are, the more prestige you get, and the higher you can rank in this society. So her mom's a general. She's kind of like a deadbeat, like just totally cold person.
I mean, deadbeat and cold are two different descriptions.
Okay, well, she's very cold.
She's a general, so she's very militant in the way in which how she interacts with her family.
Yeah, exactly. So Violet was like born super like frail, and her dad wanted her to be a scribe, and like everyone expected her to go into basically bookkeeping, but her mom signed her up and sent her to the war college to be a dragon rider, which it's like the mortality rate's like 50% or something.
Much higher.
Yeah, everyone expected her to die. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. She absolutely crushes it. But she falls. Well, first she again, spoilers here. There's gonna be plenty of spoilers for this book.
I guess this is Mark's review. He's not actually reading the summary. He's just
telling you. I'm
book.
just paraphrasing because I don't want to. Though with fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would be willing to kill Violet. Blah blah blah. It's like basically it's super dangerous. She's in magic dragon wizard school, whatever. But it's kind of like a dangerous place. There's a love interest. There's like a love triangle thing or competing love interest. It's good. So that's basically the summary, and then like shenanigans ensue, and stakes just get higher and higher and higher, and then everything reaches a climax by the end of the book.
Sure, yeah.
So, what was your? Let's just go like broad strokes. What was your take on Fourth Wing? What were you expecting? You gave it 5 stars, I think.
Yeah. Did I give it 5 stars?
Oh, that's a different review. Yeah, no. What would you give it out of 5? And then give me like your 1-minute pitch on it.
I'd say it's like a 4.5 stars. Like it's a really good read if you're into the fantasy genre. Like I should say romantasy drama, because when you compare something like Fourth Wing to say The Name of the Wind, or a what is his name? Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, Sandiverse.
Book, like you can't really compare the two in terms of like fantasy. I feel like Fourth Wing is a very different genre of fantasy for mostly female audiences who are in it for the romance and fantasy, not just the fantasy aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to hop in though to say then the premise of The Name of the Wind is kind of centralized around a love story.
It's centralized around a love story, yes, but I feel like you've read both books. I actually haven't read The Name of the Wind, even though I keep mentioning in this podcast. But you can't really compare the two in terms of fantasy level.
Well, okay, yeah, I mean, like, yes, they're different strokes, right? Like, this book is a romantasy first, fantasy second. Name of the Wind is a fantasy first with heavy romance involved in the plot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I feel like this book caters to a different audience. Like this book isn't like, it caters to, men and women of a certain age. I feel like female
it caters
readers
to a certain group of people that want a big shadow daddy to throw them against a wall
and break an armoire.
Yeah, and break
yeah.
Break a table with your rough housing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they break an armoire.
Yeah, well, I'm just... what's an armoire? So specific.
I mean, that's what they break when they have sex. They destroy it in her room.
Yeah, I know. I'm just... Anyways.
So, yeah, there is spice in the book between Violet and the main male love interest, which is Xaden. And I think
and her so-called best friend, who's actually just a creepo weirdo.
Oh, and Dane. Yeah, no, I think what I liked about this book is I heard a lot of people talking about it, saying it was really, really great. And when I read it, I kind of went in expecting a good book, and I left entertained from start to finish. I did have characters that I liked. I did cry during reading it. There was scenes that I've gone back and reread, specifically the scene where Violet gets her powers. I feel like that's just that.
Wait, was that the sex scene, or was that did she get her power? I can't remember so good the book. It was the first time that, spoiler alert, she can call lightning.
Yeah.
Was the first time she called lightning when she was going to Pound Town?
No, it's when she killed Jack Barlow.
Oh, right. And then afterwards, yeah, sorry. The only time I actually remember her using her powers in a meaningful way in this book is that when she and Xaden, spoiler alert, Xaden's like a rebel leader, kind of. I mean, he's like, oh my god, there's so much plot we could talk about. Okay, let's back up before I get into this. But
Will you ask me for my
Mhm.
thoughts? So my thoughts are that I wasn't expecting to maybe like the characters as much as I did. I wasn't expecting to enjoy the fast paced book. I liked that Violet is a strong character despite her physical disability. So as somebody who lives with a chronic condition similarly to her, it was nice to see that she wasn't just the underdog, but she was
she
literally
literally was described as having like
as little and frail.
she's like little frail. She basically has brittle bone disease. Like she's
Yeah.
just like stiff breeze and her ankle breaks. It's like
Exactly. And so not only did she bond one dragon, but she bonded two dragons. One of the most powerful dragons that she could have bonded, and and Darna, who's fucking badass. And I really enjoyed reading a character like that. To be honest, Xaden's character, he wasn't anything fresh in my opinion.
yeah,
Like,
he was like if you had a stamp that was like edgy bad
edgy
boy.
rebel leader, yeah. Like his character wasn't too original. It worked for this plot. Like I don't mean to say that I wish Xaden was different. I think his character trope worked well, but it was just really nice to see.
You know what he reminds me of?
What?
He reminds me of the like mopey bad boy who tags along with the hero in like literally any anime. He's just like he's powerful obviously, but it's just like that thing where he's like, no, my friends I secretly care about, and it's like it's such a trope. It's like this guy, I'm badass, I don't care about anyone, secretly a freaking teddy bear. It's a good trope. It works. It works.
It does, and I liked him as a character. But I really enjoyed to read Violet and kind of see her come into herself. Everybody hates Dane.
Dane is literally okay, listener. You gotta understand. From the get go, this guy gave like grooming vibes. Like he was the
grooming vibes.
He literally, he's like, oh, Violet, my friend, but he's like, what, 2, 3, 4 years older
He's
than her?
1 year older than her.
Well, he behaves like he's diaper sniping. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
He behaves like he's at university going to pick up high school girls. Okay, like that's how his character is written. It's
no.
He's his Jess from the get go. The first thing that we learn about him is that his power is that he can read minds through touch, and then in the first interaction with Violet, it mentions that he like touches her shoulder, and I'm like, so he's reading your mind right now without your permission. Like,
no, he had to touch her face.
I know, but he did it like literally right away. Like as soon as I read it, I was like, ding ding ding, red flags, this person's reading your mind. Like, because that, like, as soon as I learned what his power was, I went back and did a little index of all the interactions he's had, and in every situation where he could invade her privacy to touch her face, he did, to read her mind in that moment.
That I knew.
Right, which is just this is supposed to be the girl you care about, and like it's like, what do you do?
I know, but I don't feel like that is like the main. I mean, that is a contributing factor, but the fact that he just like doesn't believe in her. He's her oldest, bestest friend, and he basically treats her like, I do not want to watch you die, so therefore I am not going to let you try and become.
He has myriad crimes as a terrible person.
Yeah,
but just the fact that it's like.
I actually think you're right, though, that somebody went through it and he, like, touched her face, like, 27 times or something like that. But,
it's like every single time this dude could, like, it's like reading somebody's diary. It's like if you trust somebody or you're trying, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, because, like, okay, not believing in her, thinking she's frail, whatever. Like, she is frail, to be fair. And, like, she does do, like, she pulls through. But, like, on any moment she could have died. I can kind of be like, okay, sure, you're worried about her. I don't think that's justified, but whatever. But the mental, emotional betrayal. Like, imagine if you knew somebody, and then was just like, the entire time they were like, oh yeah, I've been secretly like reading your phone to see what you think about me. You'd be like, dude, what are you doing? That's weird, man. There's no two ways around it. That's just uncomfortable and weird. I hated him from the moment he was introduced. I was like, this is a bad guy. I know he's going to be a bad guy. I never liked him. And then as soon as I was justified, I literally threw the book on the ground. I was like, that's right. I'm right. This guy's dog shit.
Well, in the second book, he seems like he's being built up for a redemption arc.
Well, I don't think he deserves it, but...
Anyways, overall thoughts of Fourth Wing for you?
Overall thoughts are Fourth Wing for me. If it says anything, I don't remember much about the book. I do remember the sex scene because it was funny and really well written and like...
Funny and well written?
Yeah.
How is it comical and well written?
Because it was one of those things where it's like I wasn't expecting it to be like, oh, they're okay, cool, they finally hook up. Oh, they literally blew up half the building. Like, it's like that's just comical. It's like, of course, these are basically like just like they're like what, the equivalent of like second year university students. Like, of course they're gonna make poor decisions, right? And of course they're gonna shoot lightning out of their brains and blow windows out. It's like, yes, this is it. It made sense and it made me laugh because I was like, they could have written this to be like super, like, they could have really pandered in a way to being like really tried to sell some bad smut or something, but it was the connection felt genuine. The characters had like a vulnerable moment. Yeah, it was good. It wasn't just hole and stick, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there was more wrapped up into it, pun intended. Other than that, I really liked the characters. I thought the characters were well put together. I really like the dragons' personalities.
Do you have a favorite dragon?
Oh, obviously Cairn.
Taryn?
Yeah. See, I didn't even get his name right, but I knew he was the best. He's just a sulky old man. He's a sulky old grandpa who's taking care of Andarna.
Why are you bleeding?
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, he's been around the block. He doesn't have time for any of this shit. And the only reason he's going along with any of it is because his like granddaughter dragon like decided to make a snap decision to bond. And he's like,
well, not exactly, but
well,
yes.
Yeah, but it's like, it's part of it. It's like, I love that dynamic of like the young, I'm going on an adventure. I'm making my own decisions. And he's just like, okay, rein it in.
Yeah.
So I really liked it. I mean, other things of note, like if you do like action, there is well written fight scenes, cool magic abilities, realistic kind of interplay of how the magic would work. So there's like a self-limiting system on the magic, so people can't use too much of it or they burn up, quote unquote. But
I think it's burnout, but yeah.
Burnout. But even like the way the magic works, like the Violet gains the power to call lightning, but she just calls lightning. Like, it's not like she shoots it out of her finger. She calls lightning from the sky, which means it's going to hit literally, she can kind of direct it, but it's lightning. It's like,
no, spoiler alert for Iron Flame, she does realize that she can shoot from her hands and
but
use it from other things.
This stage in the first book, her abilities are like,
it's basically drawn to her emotions, right? Like, so she saw that Jack Barlow, who's been an asshole, literally trying to kill her since day one, tried to kill Liam, who has been a really good friend to Violet, and she just does everything that she can to save him, and then fucking loses her shit and explodes Jack Barlow, and he falls to his quote-unquote death. Spoiler alerts, he's actually not dead in book 2, but yes. There was that period where he was dead, and Violet finally did it.
Yeah,
it was very rewarding.
I think the one part of this book that kind of felt strange to me was, so basically they're in this insular kingdom, and then they learn about there's these griffin riders that are attacking. So then they get further along in their war college school. They start going on patrols, and they encounter some of these griffin riders, and it turns out, big surprise, bad boy rebel leader is actually a rebel and is working with the Griffin Riders. And then the main girl Violet's like, what the hell's going on here? And then there's like a third enemy that's been hinted at throughout the book that's then introduced, called the Venin. And their whole introduction felt... it was telegraphed in the book, but I didn't feel the emotional impact of the Venin. Like, I didn't really feel like the danger that they represented, what kind of powers they had was... I kind of looked at it like, these guys just kind of seem like they can do whatever the plot needs them to do. And
no, it's pretty clearly outlined that the Venin are basically either Griffin or dragon riders who had powers, and instead of pulling from their dragon, decides to pull from the earth. And because they pull, they're basically, magic is balance, and they're tipping the balance, so they're literally taking life in order to make magic. So therefore, the rules on their magic is a lot more vast, because they're basically doing a taboo, right? So they're doing a really bad thing to be able to do a lot, right?
I get that. I'm just saying, like, you also have the context of the second book. I haven't read the second book. It has a lot more to do with the Venin. I felt like in the first book, it was touched on what they were, and then when they actually interacted with the Venin, I didn't super love it. I didn't feel like that final confrontation... It didn't feel earned as, like, these are the real bad guys. I honestly thought that what was going to happen was the final confrontation was going to be her having to fight, like, her mom, and then have them escape from the country, and then maybe there would be... in like an idea of what the Venin were, but that was going to be entirely a book 2 thing. I think I just felt like they built up so much interest in, like, the main characters, and there were characters that could have been really good villains, and then they kind of tossed it away to bring in a different third party enemy I had no emotional resonance with, right? Like, I really would have loved if there was, like, conflict with, like, their leaders, and then they had to separate and then truly become rebels.
Well, if you just read book 2, then you would have known that's pretty much what happens.
Right, but that's what I was like, again, okay, maybe
you should have just continued the series.
Maybe I should have continued the series, but it just felt weird that was the climax of the book, that they were fighting an enemy that was hinted at, but I didn't feel like it was leading to that. But to be like, all things said, there was a big emotional payoff there, and it was well written. I just didn't think that was the story beat I would have gone with.
No, well, I honestly, like, when they kept coming up as this thing, I'm like, okay, she has a book of fables from day one, so clearly there's going to be something, like, that's important for a reason, right? Like, yes, things are like, more sentimental about things, sure, but she could have been sentimental about, a pen that her father had, or, something that he gifted her, or whatever, but no, she was... needed to bring a book of fables, and that was the thing that she really wanted to bring. Like, that obviously was going to be important somewhere. So from basically the first chapter, that in my mind was a red flag that, that there was going to be some kind of aspect from this book that probably played an important part. So to me, I wasn't so surprised that the Venin ended up being real and being the thing that they had to fight. And I thought that it was actually written in a way that, we don't really know anything about them, because, for hundreds of years, the narrative has been that, they're not a threat. I think the thing that I question a little bit more is the dragons basically helped create the kingdom with its barrier, or whatever they call it, the shield.
The ward
shield, yeah. They did it like 600 years ago. So I'm like, okay, if Venin have been a thing for 600 years, why is it only now becoming a thing that is really like, why is it now that Venom are coming to attack? Like, how is it that they lived in peace for 600 years or 400 years or whatever the time frame is? To me, I actually think that was a little bit more of a reason that I'm like, okay, it's one thing if, like, this narrative has been told for 100 years and they've been building their armies because XYZ reason, and who knows, maybe that will come to play. I honestly think it's just that part of me was more of a, I guess, a critique that I had, and I'm interested to see maybe if that gets answered in later series, because we really don't know the Venom yet as a bad guy. Like you said, we have snippets of information. We kind of know what they're capable of, but we know that they're a threat because, you know, they want to collect more power, and nothing can be more powerful than, you know, like a dragon or a dragon hunting ground. So, like, I can see where the dragons were like, no, we need to protect our young from this, and we'll use the humans to make that happen. But, you know, if it was possible, it's like, well, why didn't they share this information with all the kingdoms and then made it so that Venom could never exist, you know? So, like, I don't know, for me, I'm just in a spot where I don't really understand too much of the background.
Yeah, 600 years is a long ass time to be like, and then they were protected for 600 years. It's like,
but they're literally always preparing for war. So it's like that part of it felt a little bit weak in my opinion, unless there's some reason that, you know, Rebecca Yarros is going to explain later on. Who knows, maybe things progressed for a reason, but now all of a sudden. But yeah, that was the aspect of it that I was like, that didn't really make sense to me.
Okay. Well, I think we can move away from the first book, and we'll talk a little bit now about Iron Flame. This is the second book. I should mention, again, spoiler alert, the first book ends with Violet and Xaden basically...
Violet's poisoned,
and
after a fight with a Venom. So she ends up in a situation where they have to decide what they're going to do, and they decide to bring her to the Resistance because they have a mender there, and that mender ends up being her brother, who she thinks passed away.
Yeah, so everyone thought her brother died on some mission, but he didn't. He joined the Resistance and then faked his death.
No, so Taryn's previous writer, I can't remember what his name was like his friend or something. And when he died, because I think he actually did die, or was close to it, Taryn's writer basically brought him back from the dead, and in doing so, he burned out. Taryn obviously didn't die from it because he's still alive. But because of Taryn's writer, he lived. So he basically, I guess, in that fight found out about Venom, found out about the Resistance somehow, and then got recruited.
Okay. Well, so I haven't read any of Iron Flame, so now, and I don't even see a summary here, so you're going to have to give a little brief summary of what you remember, and then give me your thoughts.
So basically, Iron Flame picks up where Fourth Wing left off. So she's at the Resistance camp, and they need to basically make a decision on whether or not they're going to go back to the War College. And Violet and the rest of them do decide that it's best for them to go back so that they can, you know, continue their ruse and as well as like continue to train, because they're untrained dragon riders. But when they return, you know, they are welcomed back, but now the higher ups know that they were sent on a mission with Venom and they came out victorious. So, you know, they want to have them all killed. And so they're, you know, back at year 2 of the War College. So there's still like, you know, the challenges and stuff and the things that happen for second years. But there's also this added layer of the higher ups knowing that something's, you know, not quite right with their story. And it kind of progresses from there. You know, so now Violet is in the loop, and remember, she is a scribe at heart, but learning to be a writer. So for her, she's like, you know, I want to do research. I want to look into things. I want to help. And she ends up doing a really good job. She actually recruits another scribe, Jacinia, to help them out. And I just think it was, you know, it kind of maybe didn't the first time I read it, because I actually recently reread the series once I saw the Onyx Flame cover come out. I was like, yeah, I kind of want to reread these. So my second reread of Iron Flame was much better than the first time I read it. I felt like some of the stakes weren't the same, because in the first book it was like, is she gonna get a dragon? Then she got a dragon. It's like, is she gonna get powers? And then she got her powers, but she really wasn't great at using them. So there was always like something that Violet was building towards, and now she does have her power. She's learning about it, but the stakes are a little bit more political. And for me, I don't love political heavy books, so I think a little bit leery continuing to read this book, but there is a hell of a lot more background, and I actually really enjoyed a lot of it. There's a lot of scenes from it that I was like, yeah, that was really cool. My probably only critique about it is I feel like it was basically a copy and paste model from book 1. And it
can you elaborate on that?
I think what the author did is she tried to keep the pacing that the first book had, and some of the more impactful, like, emotional aspects, I think, were copied kind of from the first. So in the end, there was a big battle, just like in the first book. Someone sacrifices themselves for Violet, basically, and there's that emotional impact there. And then there's a moment of regroup, and then there's a big plot twist. So in the first book, the big plot twist was that Brennan was alive, and in this one it's that Xaden is a Venin. So
whoa, what?
Yeah. So
was he always a Venin?
No. So in that battle, he was basically about to burn out, and actually, it was a really interesting. Like, I felt like it was a little bit meaningful, where Xaden is thinking like he's fading. This guy is going to take him or kill him, and he's gonna be away from Violet. But like he just needs a little bit more power. So he's thinking about drawing from the earth. And as he's about to do that, Sigil, his dragon, sees what he's about to do. She's like, no, like, I chose you. Like, don't do this to us. And he basically is like, yeah, but Violet chose me too. And so he does this basically because he doesn't want to leave Violet, and he becomes very powerful, and he's able to defeat the Sage, I think is the guy, like, is the guy's title, or Grandmaster, or whoever, the Venin dude. But because of it, he basically became a Venin in that final fight.
There are always two Sith. A Padawan, an apprentice, and a master.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, does that instantly, like, make him go mad or something? Or is he just like, now?
So I think from what I've gathered, Venin, the desire, once they've, like, kind of gone dark, the temptation to pull more magic is, like, grows. And, you can go mad from it. But, I think it's more of a, like, an addict kind of kind of like a vampire situation. I'd like to think, right? So, like, once you're a vampire, sure, you could, not drink blood, but in doing so, you'd be very weak, and there's that, like, that hunger that you have to satiate.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time on book 2, but is there anything else you want to talk about related to it? What would you give it a 5?
Maybe like a 4 or 4.25 stars. Like I said, it's
still good.
I didn't like it as much as the first book. I think my second read around, I felt a little bit more positive about the book overall. But I think that it just wasn't different enough for me. Like, it just really felt like the author tried to mimic what they did in the first book. With certain scenes and certain interactions. And I also think that, Violet's character in this book, she basically, like, forgives everybody but Xaden for being a rebel. She just like is like super mad at him for most of the book for basically lying to her, and her being like, you have to be 100% honest with me or this can't work. And it's like, dude, he's like the leader of a rebellion. Like, even if you and him, even if he wasn't a rebellion leader and he was, you know, a soldier in your mom's army, like there would have been times where he couldn't tell her classified information. So like it just felt really stupid that she's like, you have to go against everything and be with me to be with me. Like it just, that part.
Well, look where it left him. He became a venom. What do you, I mean, this dude, he can't do anything right. Oh, I feel bad for him.
Honestly, I kind of felt bad for him too, because I felt like, I understand what happened. Like the main love interest in book 1 was a success, right? So you needed to almost do something to make it so that there was drama within the relationship. But personally, I think if you're going to write a well-written novel, even if you decide, like, who knows, maybe Xaden isn't the main love interest. Maybe she's going to like somebody else in the next 3 books. I have no idea. Who knows? Maybe
if it's Dane, I will buy the book just to burn it.
You know? And so I think that I think that the whole plot of like, oh, the 2 main characters are mad at each other for half of the book is kind of a cop-out. Like,
I feel like
you can cause tension in a relationship without making it dumb.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like, I mean, I think we can give them a little bit of a break because I think at this point they're like 21 or 22 years old, so still can be pretty hot-headed and young when making dumb decisions.
19 and 20, or like 20 and 22.
Well, she was 20 in the first book, and she's like, what, second or third year?
She was 19.
No, she's like second or third year in the next book.
So maybe she's 21.
Yeah, so she's 21. So, okay. So she's in her, you know, hot girl summer, like, you know, get... No, but it just, I feel like...
No, listen, I get what you mean.
You can kind of give them a little bit of a break because they're young, and it makes sense that it would make, like, heightened emotional decisions. But I do think it's really just... That's the one thing I really don't love is the whole trope of, like, communication issues.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's in an actual long-term relationship, you know that it's like, it's hard enough to be mad at somebody that you like care about. It's really hard to not want to just resolve that as quickly as possible.
I don't know. Some people hold grudges. I feel like you and I are maybe not the model for that, because you and I are literal people pleasers who don't want anybody to be mad ever. So
unless they don't meet our expectations.
Yeah, shut up. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, we'll hit that one. We'll get a little bit of deep lore later on. So, well, listener, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Hubris Podcast. You know, give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoy. We put out these episodes every Monday. As well, you know, you can send us a message. We have a Twitter account which we'll be posting occasional updates for when episodes are dropping. I'm the one in charge of that, so it's pretty sporadic which episodes get shout outs, just if I remember to do it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. And Jess, go ahead and give us that classic sign off that you do every time without fail. Perfect.